And if the problem is finding out what data is right for me, bingo. I mean, that's something where AI fueled search really helps.
Welcome to episode 42 of It's About Data. This time we're continuing our conversation from episode 41 with Rick Greenwald and John Rymer of analysis.tech. Last time we were talking about the gap between app developers and data people. This time we're going to be talking about how agents and AI change the no-code, low-code, and data discussions. And so, Rick, do you want to kick things off? I think you have some thoughts on this.
Sure. Oh, I have some thoughts. And by the way, I am kind of a low-code guy because I've worked a lot with Apex, the product that Tony's wearing the sweatshirt about. But it's interesting because I think one of the things that came out of the last session here was there's a gap. There's a gap between what data can do for low code and applications and what applications need to understand about data. Now, when we're talking about agents and vibe coding and all that stuff, what we've really done, and I hate this phrase, but I think it's appropriate here, is we've given steroids to the app developers. There's going to be, I don't think anyone's going to deny there's going to be tons more apps, okay? And there's already a gap now with what we have now between data people and app developers. App developers just got really big, in terms of volume and all. How do we do that? And John, I'm looking to you to fill me in here, man.
Well, Rick, it's even more of a challenge than you outlined, because so many of the new agentic tools and with I'll include in that what is often called vibe coding, which we have started to refer to as vibing, because you may output code, you may output a model, maybe it may be coding, maybe not, but essentially you're using a large language model and an expertise model with expertise behind it to generate applications. And this puts the notion of citizen development, where business experts are building applications, are generating applications in this case. This really takes it to the next level. You look at products like Lovable, for example. A lot of Lovable is taken off like a rocket, and a lot of the users of Lovable are not professional developers. So what do they understand? They understand some idea what they want to do, what they want an app to do for them, what it ought to look like, who will use it, maybe some idea of a commercial model that's associated with it. But architecture, security, data governance, nope. It's not part of their world.
Yeah.
And so, we talk about professional developers having gaps in their knowledge. Business experts, it's even more the case. Now, I raise this, I'm not anti-citizen development, just the opposite. I think it just, the situation, I think, is going to force companies to really finally step up with policies and support, incentives, budget, and guidance from IT to really enable this activity in a productive fashion and a safe fashion. But it's happening, guys.
And again, there has to be partnerships. I mean, it's a three-legged stool. It's the business users, it's developers, and it's data, and they all have to work together. I mean, it would just blow my mind when I would talk to data people or developers. I'd say, how often do you talk to users? They go, oh, we never do. Well, when we talk about data governance, they don't know enough to do it. They don't know enough to understand it, but they're the only ones who can tell you what it should be. They're the only ones who can tell you what it means for their data to be correct. So they have to be involved. Everyone has to work together on this. Now, one potential beam of sunshine on the horizon is something which has been lurking around in the data and IT world for a long time, and that is a catalog. A catalog where everything is centralized and people can find what they need. Because I think I think sometimes people make a big mistake. They say we have too much data. We have too many copies of data. And that's almost never true. You know, different use cases have different contexts, which means that they have to have different governance on that data, even if it came from the same source. So the problem is not too many pieces of data, it's not too much data, it's understanding that data and managing it. And guess what's a great
Right.
tool for understanding lots of pieces of data? A database in the form of a repository. And one thing that I love AI for is using AI with the metadata in a catalog to help make these things simple.
Right. Rick, you bring up an interesting point there, which is looking at how some of this technology might help to plug some of this gap. I'm going to turn the question back to technology here. We've been talking about a lot about how basically the different, we've been talking a lot about the cultural part of this.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also, when we start talking vibe coding, one of the first things that really comes to mind on that standpoint is that when you're doing vibe coding, is it necessarily going to be good code? And more specific to the discussion we're having here is when you're going against a database. Does basically the training data for the vibe coding tool, is it going to know how your database is structured? And Rick, this is where you brought up an interesting point here, and I think maybe this might be part of the answer, which is like with data catalogs and with AI, able to read those catalogs, and in turn, AI also helping to figure out what the structure of data is. So I'd like to throw this back to both of you guys. Could technology in this case plug what I think are some of the very obvious gaps with vibe coding when it comes to working against data in databases?
Well, I think the answer is yes. But Tony, it's all about training the models, and it's all about the prompts that you use. We had a call today with a company that has a low code platform, and part of their value proposition is they will extract um, uh, all of the definitions from RPG. Remember RPG
Oh
applications?
yeah.
The young people again are going, "What the hell is that old guy talking about?"
Okay,
But
okay, boomer.
Who you calling old?
exactly,
Who you calling
exactly.
old?
But it turns out that so this is in support of development. It's not not vibe coding per se, but it's understanding a target so that you can modernize that target, which is I think part of what you're referring to. Well, you have to understand that target, and if it's something like Salesforce, we know a lot about how that thing is structured, how Salesforce, the CRM is structured. RPG apps, they're all different, all of it.
Mhm.
So it you have to dive into the structure. You have to then design the prompts that are going to actually produce what you want. It's AI can help, but boy, there's a lot of expertise that's required or in and around, getting that AI set up to actually be able to function properly and give you a good result, give you the an accurate result.
But there's
That
also
makes sense?
there's also a massive multiplier effect though, because keep in mind, a database is a repository of state. Okay, I mean, applications are stateless, databases are repositories of state.
Mhm.
So all the value you put into the data, all the data governance, all the structure, all the relationships, as soon as someone starts using that, they get all that for free. Okay. So vibe coding connected properly and richly and robustly to a database and a data dictionary and a repository can take all of those advantages and get them automatically. The other thing about AI and vibe coding and databases is one of the things which I don't think there's any disagreement on is AI and Gen AI and prompts are terrific ways to do search. I mean, they bring context to search. And if the problem is finding out what data is right for me, bingo. I mean, that's something where AI fueled search really helps. It's as my aunt once said about a law degree, it couldn't hurt, you know. Having all that extra stuff, it's not going to get worse because right now they're kind of just gimme, gimme, gimme. If they're given the option to make a more intelligent choice on gimme, some of it's going to be better. Nothing's going to be worse, but some of it's going to be better. And as this explodes in the number of apps using the data and the number of data sources, we have to get more efficient. We cannot do twice the work with the same. Work smarter, not harder. Yeah, right. We can't do 2, 3, 4 times the amount of integration or work or data work with the same staff with the same time. We have to get better at it.
So to me, I'm going to label something that you just said, Rick. I'm going to call this like database-centric development. And the interesting thing is this is a very appealing idea to me, but it kind of goes against the current microservices approach, which is every team, every microservice has its own database. Okay, I've got a reaction out of you.
Oh, well, was I giving away my feelings?
I believe
and also not to mention the fact that agents could create their own basically transient databases.
Right now, that is a common approach, but it's also been a big problem, right? Like a lot of these examples from, Replit or something where stuff is blowing up come down to agents creating new databases, changing schemas, dropping tables, dropping databases.
Well, that's also a lot of the rationale what we hear in terms of with Databricks and Snowflake each buying Postgres databases that they're going to need for agents. But anyway, folks, you guys say it. Dive in.
And microservices are stateless. Okay, databases are stateful. They actually don't fit together.
Yeah.
I was once at an Oracle conference, and a guy gave a great presentation on doing all of his stuff in microservices. And I went up to him afterwards. I said, "How do you handle this issue of shared state?" He goes, "Oh, we don't. We just have everything in a single microservice, and they have to manage all the data, and they handle all the requests for the data." And this is not a step forward, folks. This is a step backward. So these are some basic concepts which database people, it's just written in their heart. It's natural. And frankly, I don't mean this to be derogatory. It is so domain specific and so nuanced. The solution is not to wait for application developers or end users to get it. The solution is to take care of it.
Rick, there's a massive number of application developers for whom microservices are an implementation detail. I mean, it really doesn't matter. There are some instances. My former colleague at Forrester, Jeffrey Hammond, would be hitting me over the head at this point. But there are some instances where the microservices architectures have been really, really helpful. Really helpful.
Yes.
Because of this, if you're in Amazon and you're providing a service to potentially millions of people, microservice architecture is your friend. I mean, for scale, for changeability, et cetera, et cetera. But if you're talking about a customer onboarding app, how much does it really matter? Unless you're maybe onboarding, citizens in China, where those kind of factors come into play. It doesn't matter that much.
I was talking about microservices as a whole thing. If you put the database in a mini service, which is accessed by multiple microservices, everything's good. There's no problem with that. But that's not. I mean, I've talked to more often than not. I talk to companies and they say the mandate is that everything's a microservice. Well, that doesn't make sense all the time.
Isn't this another version of having what turns out to be a really core data store in your low-code platform? It's just another version of it. It's like for the developer's convenience, data is managed in a certain way, and that presents all these challenges for data governance and for shareability and concurrency and all the factors, right? I mean, it's just another version of that, which says to me, thank God for fusion teams. I mean, that's something that that's an idea that really has caught fire.
You're absolutely right, John. And I've evolved on this over the past
Mm.
decade or so, which is
Well, and by
if
the
you would
way,
have come,
guys, I should just
go
highlight
ahead.
that Rick doesn't tell me anymore that developers are evil. So I'm making progress.
We made progress.
Rick joins analysis.tech, and we're all about low code development.
Uh-huh.
First thing
By
he
the way,
says,
John, you were scaring me
developers
for a
are evil.
second. You
Evil.
scared me for a second. I thought you were back to Tableau data extracts.
I have
Sorry,
been
Rick.
known to
Sorry,
refer to
Rick.
I have been known to refer to them as the dark side. Okay, but all of these, I would not throw too much shade on microservices or vibe coding or any of that, but it's just really important that people understand this is a piece of the puzzle. There are other pieces, and and any one of those pieces can destroy the value in the overall whole. And as long as people understand where that is, I mean, look, let's take something very basic philosophically. Do you put logic in the database or do you put it in the app? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Either one of these can work. Now, I think
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of good reasons to put as much of it in the database as possible, but that doesn't mean it's the only way. All
Rick,
that's important.
Rick, that's the right way to approach this is which logic.
Mm-hmm.
Correct. And there's some which
Some of
you would
it
say
belongs in the
that
database. Some of it
that
does not.
absolutely belongs in the database. This
Well, and
may
we had the
this,
same thing. Logic in the UI layer or logic in the server.
Yeah.
There was a
Yeah.
ton of logic in the UI layer. It was a
Yeah.
nightmare.
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
but it
Sorry, Rick.
depends. It depends. If the UI layer is going to be the kind of context for your use case, and the governance and the logic only relates to that context, why not put it there? There's no downside to it. But as soon as you start saying it's going to be more than just that, oh, now we got a problem.
Well,
Because you have to coordinate it.
well, for another day, Rick. You kind of got it, but you're not wrong, but you're not right either.
Well, I think honestly, John, there isn't a wrong or right. There's an appropriate and not appropriate.
There
And
you
if you
go.
try and force a round peg into a square hole, it is at least going to be harder and may not be possible at all.
Yeah. I think that's a great way to kind of wrap this up because basically it's that, reality is nuanced. I mean, Matt, what's your take there?
It's interesting. I think what I'm hearing here from Rick is that you kind of see a difference between micro databases and microservices. And the standard approach to microservices right now, frankly, is micro databases, right? Like each team manages their own data. And you're kind of saying, really, you need some centralization and standardization of data. And then you can have these small services that run on top of it. I think to your point about application logic living in the database, that's almost like an ideal state. It just turns out that it's still hard because from the database technology side, we're still trying to figure out how that works. And so we rely on transactions that get really, really complicated. And we rely on the app developers to write those transactions. And that continues to be hard right now. And there's like maybe a next phase of transactional databases where they have enough logic inside that you don't need to write as
Well,
many
put it this way,
transactions.
that goes back to the argument way back to the 1980s of triggers and stored procedures. And Oracle's saying you should put it all in the database. I think that's a whole other discussion
It
for
is.
another day. And the
I,
fact
I,
and when AI comes in, that's another discussion for another day.
Another discussion.
I think there is one way to sum this up though, which is what I think people across all these different groups don't appreciate is when you step over the line, that first step is a doozy, So,
yes.
I mean, what you said, Matt, completely agree with it. But then when your CTO says, I want to get data from these 5 different micro apps and put it together and have it make sense, you know what? You got a little work ahead of you here, my friend. And there is no single source of truth. When people say I spend 80% of my time prepping my data, of course. What do you expect?
I would have a different summarization here, which is, as I used to like to say, the books haven't been written yet. All we can do at this point is flag where the changes are likely to occur and begin to catalog what are the risks and the opportunities in these changes. We've talked about a number of them here. They're all going to require us to revisit team structures, skills, policies, governance, everything we do. And the thing that I think the best thing you can do right now is start working, but really it's not just not just an add-on to everything we've always done before. It's something
Yeah.
different.
The
Yeah.
people who do this well will flourish.
Yeah.
The other
Sounds good.
people won't die because most people don't do it well. But if you
Okay.
can do it well, it'll be an accelerator more than any technology could give you.
Yeah.
Superpower.
It all comes down to change management. And I
Yes.
think,
Bingo.
Yep.
another discussion for another day. Folks,
Thanks very much, guys.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much,
thank
John and
you.
Rick, for being here.